Yo, chat, before the video starts, man, hit that like and subscribe button, bro. Let's get 5 likes in the videos. We out. Yo, it's good, chat. It's another day, another video, man. We got Ray William Johnson, my poop story.
So this woman, let's call her Doocy. And Doocy has a problem. She's a little lonely. I mean, she's single, she's in her 20s, living in Bristol, England, and she wants to date. So one day, she gets on Tinder and she's swiping around looking for a potential match, and that is when, boom, she matches with this guy, Liam. And she thinks Liam is fine. So Liam and Doocy, they chat a little, they connect, and soon they make plans to go out on a date. And so they go out on this date, and they end up meeting at this well-known chicken place, and they're having a good time, and at the end of the date, Liam and Doocy, they're really feeling each other. So he invites her back to his place to watch a movie, and maybe, I don't know, maybe smash a little, I don't know. And she's like, alright. And so they go back to Liam's place, and he opens a bottle of wine, and they chill, and they start watching a movie. And so far, everything seems to be going great. But then, about an hour in, Doocy gets an uncomfortable feeling in her stomach. So she's like, yeah, I'm gonna hit up the bathroom real quick. And so Doocy gets up to go to the bathroom, and she goes in there and she ends up dropping a whole ass deuce in Liam's toilet. But whatever, at least she finally feels better, and she can get back to her date. Until when Doocy's done using the toilet, she goes to flush, and the toilet won't flush. I guess she clogged it. And so she low-key panics. I mean, this date is going well, and she stopped up his toilet? What is he gonna think? This is gonna ruin the whole date. And she doesn't know what to do. But then she notices the bathroom window, and she gets an idea. She's like, what if I just scoop it out of the toilet and throw it out the window? And so that's what she does. Doocy reaches down into the toilet bowl, and she grabs her turd, wraps it up in toilet paper, and she quickly throws it out the window. Here's the thing about this window, though. This isn't no regular window. It's actually a double window with multiple panes of glass. So her turd flies through the first window, but then it's stopped by the glass on the second window. And it slides all the way down, and it falls into a crack between both windows. And of course, Doocy starts freaking out. She's like, what the fuck? She didn't realize the window doesn't open to the outside. So now her poop is in plain sight at the bottom of this double window situation. Here's actually what the inside of the window gap normally looks like. So now her turd would be resting way deep down in this crack here. And so Doocy's like, oh, bloody hell. Now what's she gonna do? She can't just leave it there in between these two windows. I mean, Liam will eventually see it or smell it. And so she decides the best thing to do is to tell him the truth. And so she leaves the bathroom, and I assume she washed her hands, but she leaves the bathroom, she goes to...
If y'all was on a date and somebody came to your house and this happened, are you kicking them out? Or are you gonna use this as like a... What's the word? I don't know, man. Y'all know what I'm trying to say, man. If somebody did this in your house, bro, are you kicking them out of the house or you let them stay, bro?
Liam, who is still on the couch, and she tells him exactly what happened. She's like, I dropped a load in your toilet and I accidentally clogged it up and I tried to scoop it out and throw it out the window, but I didn't know you have a double window and the poop slid down and got stuck between the cracks and I don't know how to get it out. And Liam, he seems like a nice guy, and he doesn't want to make her feel bad about it, so he's like, no worries, we'll just fish it out and throw it in the bin, no problem. But now they have to access the window gap by going outside and opening the window from the outside. So they go outside, and that is when they discover the outside window is completely sealed shut. Like, it doesn't open at all. So Doocy's turd wrapped in toilet paper is trapped, and it's on display for anyone walking by to see. Here's actually a photo of it, and if you zoom in, you can kind of see it right there, wrapped in toilet paper. And so Liam's like, okay, no big deal. I'll just break the window and we'll get the dookie out that way. But no, Doocy actually has a better idea. She just happens to be an amateur gymnast. No, like, really. She's an amateur gymnast, and she thinks maybe she can climb up and reach down and grab it out somehow. So she and Liam, they go back to his bathroom, and she climbs up and puts her head and shoulders into the shaft, and she tries, but she can't quite reach the poop. So then Liam gives her a little boost and he's holding her legs as she dives deeper down to the bottom, and there she finally grabs it and she passes it up to Liam and he gets it and he throws it away. Boom. Problem solved. Everyone's happy. Until again. When Ducey moves to get out of the crevice, she's unfortunately stuck upside down. Like literally upside down. And Liam, he tries to help her, but he can't get her out. Like, she is seriously stuck in there. So, to top off this first date that's clearly going so well, Liam has to call the fire department. So, Liam calls the fire department, and he's like, my date got stuck in the shaft trying to get out her phone. Then, sometime later, a whole-ass fire brigade shows up. And they all have to cram in the bathroom so that they can rescue Ducey. And this is an actual photo of all of them doing that. And if you think that's embarrassing, someone actually took a picture of her stuck in the window. Now, lucky for her, the firemen do fish her out, and she's physically okay, although this might be the worst first date story I've ever heard. And in case you were wondering, like I said, Liam's a nice guy, and he and Ducey did end up going out a couple more times on a couple more dates, but ultimately they weren't a match, and they did not end up together.
Bro, if that happened, bro, me and that person, we gonna die together, bro. Ain't no way, bro.
Wow. Dumbest story we've ever done.
That's nuts. That's nuts. That's nuts, Chad. That's nuts. Alright, man. See y'all next video, bro. Tomorrow. Yo, chat, before the videos, we out. Yo, it's good, chat. It's day 3, January 3rd, man. We grinding. Wait, my grandma is a murderer. Ray William Johnson. Crazy title, by the way. Get to the video. And we just hit 20 subs, y'all boys. Let's get it.
From the screen to the ring to the pen to the key.
My bad.
Is your grandma capable of murder? Are you sure about that? So this woman, let's call her Grandma. And Grandma has a problem.
Killer's crazy.
She has quite a gambling addiction. Like, she's in and out of local casinos, losing a ton of money. From what I read, she's lost a minimum of 100 grand playing slot machines, which is all her money. So she's in a lot of debt. Now, Grandma is married to this man, who we'll just call Grandpa. And one day, she and Grandpa are at home, and I guess she needs more money, or maybe she's just ashamed to tell Grandpa that she's in so much debt from gambling. It isn't really clear. But Grandma suddenly gets a pew-pew, and blam, blam, she unalives Grandpa. Then she goes to the employees of the worm farm that they own, and she tells them that Grandpa won't be coming into work for a while because he's been feeling sick. Now, this is supposed to buy her some time before people start getting suspicious. Then she continues living in her home while Grandpa's body is there, decomposing, for a whole ass 11 days. Then Grandma embezzles about 10 grand from Grandpa's business account, and she flees,
so you can't
driving
trust
away
women, man.
in his
She killed her own husband.
So now Grandma's on the
buddy.
run. But she's a gambling addict. So as she drives from Minnesota to Florida, along the way, she's stopping at casino after casino.
That's nuts.
And as she's driving, she comes up with this crazy plan to escape the law. She's gonna find someone who looks kind of like her, unalive them, and steal their identity. Now, eventually, Grandma arrives in Fort Myers, Florida. And there, she decides to go to a local bar. And at the bar, she spots a woman who kind of looks like her, kind of. This woman, Pam. And Grandma sits down and she orders a drink and she strikes up a conversation with Pam. And she and Pam really hit it off. So they keep drinking and chatting, and eventually they're like best friends. Like one night they hang out at Pam's condo that she rented, the next night they go out to a brewery, and on one of those nights, Grandma goes back to Pam's condo with her. And once they're alone, she pulls out her pew-pew that she brought, and blam, blam, she shoots Pam, unaliving her. No. The next morning, Grandma goes back to Pam's condo, and she calls the front desk from there, and she pretends to be Pam. And she asks them to extend her stay for a few nights, and this is gonna buy her a little time to get away. Then she combs through all of Pam's stuff, taking any clothes she likes, cash, credit cards, and Pam's ID, and she loads everything into Pam's car and steals her car. And they actually got security footage of that. And from there, she drives from Florida all the way over to Texas, South Padre Island. And of course, she stops at a bunch of casinos on the way, because, she's got to hit up those slots. Regardless, she ends up on South Padre Island, and there, Grandma's on a mission to find another lookalike to steal their identity again. And pretty quickly, she finds one. She's at a local restaurant, and she spots her next target, this woman, Bernadette. And so Grandma approaches her, and they start chatting and drinking and hitting it off, and they have so much in common, what a coinkydink. And just like Pam, Bernadette is just happy to have made a new friend.
Sad, bro.
And so she and Grandma, they get drinks the next night, and Grandma stays over at Bernadette's, and the next morning, they have breakfast together, and then they make plans to meet up again in a couple of nights for dinner. But shady-ass Grandma is about to unalive her too. But here's what Grandma doesn't know, though. Back in Minnesota, Grandpa's employees and coworkers at the worm farm, they hadn't heard from him in a while. So police end up going to his house to do a welfare check, and they find his body. Now, separately from that, in Florida, at the hotel, police find Pam's body. Now, at this point, they know these two murders are connected. They also know that Grandma is the one who did it because she used the same pew-pew in both murders. So they launch a nationwide manhunt looking for her. Now, you know how Grandma really likes to go to casinos? Well, all those casinos she gambles at, they all have tons of security cameras. So police are able to get CCTV footage of her, plus her banking activity, and this helps them track her down to South Padre Island. Meanwhile, this story is getting tons of news coverage.
Authorities say that Lois Reese may be targeting women who look like her so that she can steal their identity.
And they start posting Grandma's photo all over the news. So, right before she's supposed to meet up with Bernadette so she can unalive her, Grandma's sitting at a local bar having a drink. And there, the manager of a restaurant next door to the bar recognizes her from her picture being on the news, and they call police. Minutes later, U.S. Marshals, along with the local police, they swoop in and they surround her, and bam, they finally arrest her. This is actually security footage of her being arrested at the bar, but it's kind of hard to make out. Regardless, here's her mugshot. And Grandma ends up pleading guilty, and she gets 2 life sentences. Nice. Grandmas be crazy sometimes.
Oh, my grandma not crazy though. She would never do that. That's insane, buddy. All right, y'all like this, guys? Y'all need to know. Yo, chat, before the video goes, we out. Yo, what's good? Chat, we got Ray William Johnson. My plastic surgeon is evil.
So this doctor is about to unalive someone over some negative online reviews.
Allegedly.
Now, the doctor's name is Dr. Tampa Bay, and Dr. Tampa Bay, he's a plastic surgeon. He's trying to build a name for himself, posting videos of himself on YouTube and on his Instagram account.
Hi, Instagrammers. I just wanted to let you all know we hit 4,000 followers last night, which is awesome.
And bro has a pretty good reputation with his patients and his colleagues. But one day, all that changes. Because one of his patients posts a bad review of him online. And Dr. Tampa Bay's like, what the fuck? And then he gets another, and another, and another, and it happens again and again, and he keeps getting more bad reviews. So he looks into it, and allegedly some of his patients are upset, and it has to do with improper billing. But it's not actually his fault. He doesn't do the billing, it's the fault of the Plastic Surgery Institute he works for. But it kind of doesn't matter, because bad reviews like this can ruin a doctor's career. So Dr. Tampa Bay gets pissed off, and he's like, F this, and he not only leaves and starts his own practice, but he sues the old Plastic Surgery Institute for putting his career and his reputation in jeopardy. And he sues them for like $15,000, so it's not really a huge lawsuit. But in this lawsuit, representing the other side is this lawyer, Steven. And Steven, he's a nice guy, and he's apparently a good attorney. But as this lawsuit progresses, Dr. Tampa Bay starts to hate Steven. Like, really hate him. Apparently, they're constantly getting into it. Like at one meeting, they're allegedly arguing with each other, and then Dr. Tampa Bay confronts Steven in the law firm bathroom and calls him a scumbag. And as time passes, Dr. Tampa Bay gets more and more upset over all of this. Like, how could his old company mess him over like this? He used to have such a good reputation, and bad reviews online could destroy his career. And also, screw that lawyer Steven they hired. And at some point, Dr. Tampa Bay has had enough. and he allegedly comes up with this insane plan to get rid of this lawyer Steven for good. First, he goes and he buys a pickup truck with cash, and he gets a license plate device that allows you to change the plate numbers with the touch of a button. And he also doesn't register the truck. Then he gathers a bunch of supplies, a cart, a blanket, trash bags, and most importantly, a syringe containing a paralyzing drug. And then, about a week before he's scheduled to do a virtual hearing with Steven, he drives over to Steven's law firm. And then he goes inside and he hides inside a utility closet there and he waits. And supposedly he's waiting for Steven to walk by on his way to the restroom, and he's gonna follow him into the restroom and unalive him. But while he's hiding there, boom, someone opens the utility closet door and sees him. And Dr. Tampa Bay says some bullshit like, I was just fixing a power outage. And then he leaves. And the employee reports it to the police, but unfortunately nothing comes of it, and no one recognizes that it's Dr. Tampa Bay. Oh, but Dr. Tampa Bay's not done. He's gonna try again. On the day his virtual hearing with Steven is scheduled, Dr. Tampa Bay does the same thing. He drives over to Steven's law firm, he hides in the utility closet again, and he waits for Steven to walk by. Meanwhile, Steven's down the hall working in his office, and eventually he leaves his desk to go to the restroom. So he walks by that utility closet, and Dr. Tampa Bay sees him. And when Steven gets into the restroom, Dr. Tampa Bay follows him in. And then, boom, he pulls out a syringe, and he stabs Steven with it. Now, this syringe is filled with a paralyzing drug called succinylcholine, which paralyzes your whole body while you're still wide awake. And it only takes about 60 seconds to start
Why is that a thing, buddy?
So, poor Steven, his body becomes completely paralyzed. But he's still very wide awake during this whole thing. And then, and I'm not sure exactly how he does it, but while Steven is paralyzed, Dr. Tampa Bay allegedly unalives him right there in the restroom. Then, Dr. Tampa Bay cleans the whole place up with bleach, and next, he gets his cart from the back of his truck, and he puts Steven's body in it, and he throws a blanket over it to hide it. And he pulls the cart with Steven's body in it out the front door of the law firm, and he loads it into the back of his pickup truck. And it's actually amazing that no one at the law firm noticed or heard anything suspicious. Like, it seems like that fight in the restroom would have been really loud. But anyway. Now, at this point, Dr. Tampa Bay and Steven are scheduled to do that virtual hearing via phone. So, Dr. Tampa Bay stops what he's doing and he signs into the virtual hearing using his phone. I guess this is to give himself an alibi, like, I couldn't have unalived anyone. I was on the phone in that virtual hearing the whole time. But anyway, Steven obviously doesn't make it to the virtual hearing because, he's no longer alive. While Dr. Tampa Bay waits on the phone for the hearing to start. But obviously it can't start because Steven's not there. So eventually he hangs up and he leaves the law firm parking lot with Steven's body in the back of his truck. And what he does with Steven's body after that, we actually don't know because the body is never found. And if you're like, Ray, this brutal murder seems extreme for a lawsuit over 15 grand and a dispute over some bad reviews online, then you'd be right. I mean, this whole motive is absurd and it still doesn't make sense to me, and I studied the hell out of this case. Now, inside the law firm, I guess Steven's boss notices he didn't make that hearing and that he hasn't been in his office for a couple of hours. So he goes to check the restroom, and as soon as he steps in, boom, he's hit with an overwhelming smell of bleach. Plus, he notices some sprinkles of what looks like blood. So boss is like, well, this is weird, and he calls the police. Later, police show up, and they search the whole building, but no sign of Steven. Then they check the surveillance cameras, still no sign of Steven, no sign that Steven ever even left the building. The only thing they really find is footage of some strange person leaving the place with a cart full of something that looks like it could be a body, but who knows. And they do see the strange person drive away in his truck. Plus, they find one lone fingerprint on the restroom door. And as police investigate further, they're told about some of the past arguments that Steven and Dr. Tampa Bay had. And they're told that a few weeks before, some strange guy was seen hiding in the utility closet. And police, they start piecing all of this evidence together, and suddenly they have a suspect, Dr. Tampa Bay. And so, bam, they get a warrant, and they go and search his house. And there, they find the truck seen in the security footage parked in his garage. Plus, there's blood in the truck bed. Not to mention that one lone fingerprint they found on the restroom door, it just happens to be Dr. Tampa Bay's. And later, they search his other car and they find a lot of stuff, including that paralyzing drug that was used on Steven. And so, bam, they arrest Dr. Tampa.
Why is that a thing, though? Like, who needs to be paralyzed purposely? I don't get it, but
Bay. Here's his mugshot. And they throw him in jail and they charge him with first-degree murder. Now, just to be clear, this story is told from the prosecution's perspective, so it's all
alleged.
Dr. Tampa Bay, he's in jail, but he hasn't been to trial yet, so he hasn't actually been found guilty. But this will be an interesting trial because the circumstantial evidence against Dr. Tampa Bay, it's not looking good for him. But at the same time, they never found Steven's body, and it's hard to convict someone for murder when there is no body. But the trial, it's actually later in 2025, and we'll see how it turns out.
Damn, man. I mean, Melly got convicted without a body, right? Or not without a body, without evidence. Or maybe that's not the same thing. I don't know, brother. I like and subscribe, bro. See you on this video, bro. Yo, chat, before the video goes, we out. Yo, what's good, chat? It's day 6. It's like day 36, bro. I uploaded all last month. But let's get to 50 subs, bro. Like and subscribe, bro. We got Ray William Johnson, here's how Sabrina Carpenter destroyed the NYC mayor.
So this guy is in big trouble. No, not this guy. This guy. And it's all thanks to this pop star. Let me explain. Now, the pop star, her name's Sabrina Carpenter. You know who that is. And one day, Sabrina needs to shoot a music video for one of her songs. And she and her crew, they want to shoot it at this church in Brooklyn. So they send some producers to scout out the location, and producers get there and they end up talking to this guy, who we'll just call Pastor, because he's the pastor of the church. And Pastor's like, sure, you can shoot your little music video here. And they agree that Sabrina's people will donate $5,000 to the church. So they agree on a date, and later Sabrina and her film crew, they show up and they shoot her music video, and at the end of the shoot, they leave, and the church goes back to normal, and everyone got what they wanted out of the deal, and everyone lives happily ever after. Until sometime later, Sabrina's music video finally drops. And like all of her other music videos, it blows the fuck up, getting over 100 million views on YouTube. Now, in this video, you can see Sabrina dancing around and singing in the church. And supposedly, some of her movements in the video are provocative. But to be honest, that doesn't really look all that provocative to me, but whatever, it's not my church. Regardless, I guess the video somehow makes its way over to the bishop of the church, and the bishop is pissed. And I guess a lot of the church leaders are pissed too, and they're all clutching their pearls like, oh my heavens! And so Bishop goes and he demotes Pastor and strips him of his pastoral duties, partly for giving Sabrina permission to shoot a music video in the church. Then the bishop also has to, I guess, re-bless the church. Like, here's a picture of him throwing holy water all over the place. I guess Sabrina's dancing somehow unblessed it, and so now he has to re-bless it. I don't really know how any of that works, but it all seems very silly. But anyway, here's where the story gets crazy. Because of this Sabrina Carpenter sexy music video fiasco, the church leaders launch an investigation into the pastor. And they start looking into the church's bookkeeping. And they find something really suspicious. Apparently, Pastor, who was in charge of fundraising from 2019 to 2021, he had transferred almost $2 million of church funds to a random law firm and a couple of other companies. And these money transfers were allegedly never approved by the church. So, what is this law firm and these companies that received all this church money? Well, they all seem to be connected to this guy, Frank. And Frank is the former chief of staff for this guy, who we'll call Mayor Eric. Now, Mayor Eric just so happened to be running for mayor of New York City between 2019 and 2021. The same time those $2 million money transfers were made. So it looks like the church was illegally funneling money to the mayor during his mayoral campaign. And so now, boom, the feds gotta get involved because this seems like a much bigger issue than Sabrina's sinful dancing in the church. And so the feds investigate. They investigate Mayor Eric, they investigate the pastor, and they find that allegedly Mayor Eric had been accepting bribes in exchange for favors. Not only that, he also, allegedly, he had friends of his, like the pastor, loaning out money to companies who would then have their employees make donations to Mayor Eric's campaign, all of which is illegal. And so the feds start accusing Mayor Eric and the pastor of essentially defrauding New York City out of $10 million, all to help him get into office, which he actually did end up getting into office, so this looks really bad for the mayor. And here's actually a picture of Mayor Eric and the pastor and Frank, by the way. Here's the mayor there, and there's the pastor, and there's Frank, the former chief of staff. Now, just as Mayor Eric's preparing to run for election again to get reelected, bam, he's formally indicted on 5 federal charges of bribery, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations. And this story goes public, and it blows up, and it's all over the news. And some of his staff resigned.
Indicted after federal corruption investigation.
And city officials who aren't connected to any of the crimes resign. They're like, I want no part of this. And then Mayor Eric's got to go and get on TV and respond to all this chaos.
My fellow New Yorkers, it is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies.
And by this point, the people of New York City, they don't like this. They don't like Mayor Eric anymore. He seems shady. And they're like, dude, you're corrupt. You gotta step down. And even members of his own political party start calling on him to resign.
It would be best for Mayor Adams to step aside.
But Mayor Eric sees all this pushback and he's just like, nah, bro. And he stays in office and he continues to be mayor. Not only that, he's currently in the process of running for re-election, so he is definitely not backing down. Meanwhile, Sabrina Carpenter's over here, and she's laughing about the whole thing.
Should we talk about how I got the mayor indicted, or?
Now, we're gonna pause this story for a second, because I need to talk about this guy again, Luigi. Now, if you've already forgotten about Luigi, because we all have TikTok brain, here's a quick recap. Luigi is the guy who allegedly became disillusioned with the US healthcare system. Then he allegedly got so angry that he traveled to New York City and unalived a healthcare CEO outside of a hotel with a 3D printed pew-pew. He then allegedly fled from New York City to Pennsylvania, and boom, he got arrested a few days later in a McDonald's when a McDonald's employee ratted him out. Now he's sitting in jail waiting on his trial. So all that happened, and kaboom, Luigi's case blows up. And it's all over the news, the whole country's talking about it. Now, apparently, Mayor Eric sees this Luigi case, and I guess he sees it as an opportunity for like a photo op for himself, even though he's under indictment himself and is potentially a criminal himself. He wants to make himself look good by making an example of Luigi. Now, Luigi is scheduled to be extradited from Pennsylvania to New York, where his alleged crime occurred. And for this extradition, Mayor Eric orchestrates this insanely unnecessary perp walk for him, with like 1 million law enforcement all surrounding Luigi. I mean, you can see this ridiculous show here. And in this perp walk, Mayor puts himself right in the middle of it, because of course he does. So not only do you not need this comically large group of cops to escort this one guy, but why do you need the city's frickin' mayor to be part of a police entourage during a perp walk? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm lost.
My opinion, it's because the mayor wants the photo op. He wants to make himself look like he did something. And maybe it's to distract people from all of his alleged fraud and taking bribes. I don't know. Regardless, people see this and they get pissed off at him, and they start calling him out. Even Luigi's lawyer calls him out in a hearing.
To have all of these press there, the media there, it was like perfectly choreographed. And what was the New York City mayor doing at this press conference? Your Honor, that just made it utterly political. And frankly, Your Honor, the mayor should know more than anyone of the presumption of innocence that he too is afforded when he dealing with his own issues. And frankly, I submit that he was just trying to detract from those issues by making a spectacle of Mr. Mangione.
Anyway, Mayor Eric's corruption trial is this year, and we'll see how it goes.
No, I think he's cooked. I ain't gonna lie. All right, man. Y'all like subscribe. We'll see you on tomorrow. Yo, what's good, chat? We got She's Gonna Scam You, Ray William Johnson.
So one day, boom, this guy gets hit with dementia. His name is Mr. Bennett. And Mr. Bennett lives in Melbourne with his wife, this woman, Mrs. Bennett. So Mr. Bennett gets hit with dementia. And Mrs. Bennett doesn't really have the skill set to take care of him anymore. So, unfortunately, she decides she's gonna have to put him in a nursing.
This nigga. Looking good. Stop.
Home. And in doing so, she needs to sell their house. So she goes to a real estate agent to help her with this. This woman, Haley.
Bro, stop.
So she asks Haley to help sell their home, and Haley's like, yeah, I'll help. And she gets right to work. She sets it all up. She lists their house on the market. But then, over time, Haley, she starts helping them with things outside of selling their home. Like, they're trying to pick out a nursing home for Mr. Bennett, so she's like driving them around to different nursing homes to help them make a decision. And this is a huge benefit to the Bennetts because they don't have any other family around, so they really appreciate what Haley's doing for them. But then, Haley starts to get a little greedy. Whatever money she was gonna make helping them sell their house, I guess it isn't enough. Because one day, Haley goes to them and she offers to help them with something beyond real estate. She wants to help them manage their day-to-day finances.
Oh, no.
And the Bennetts, they can't keep up with all this accounting and paying bills, so they're like, all right. And that is when, unfortunately, Mrs. Bennett hands power of attorney over their finances over to Haley. So, what does Haley do? Well, she accesses the couple's internet banking, and she adds their debit card to her phone wallet. And then she starts spending. So she's over here hitting up clothing stores and restaurants. She's buying the expensive kind of makeup.
Dior.
She's living a pretty good life off of their money. And eventually, even Mrs. Bennett starts to notice a little. Like suddenly Haley's wearing cashmere coats all the time, and her hair is all professionally done. But then Haley thinks, you know what? A new car would be kind of nice too. So she uses the Bennett's money to make payments on a Mercedes-Benz. And one time, Haley picks Mrs. Bennett up in this new Benz, and she's like, hey, what do you think of my new ride? And Mrs. Bennett's like, it's too flashy. And of course, she doesn't realize it's her money that paid for that car. So anyway, this goes on for a while, and Haley just keeps spending. She gets beauty treatments and a new iPhone and a new MacBook, and the Bennetts don't fully catch on because Haley has gone into their banking info and changed the address so that all the Bennetts' bank statements are redirected to her own home address. So the Bennetts never see any bank statements, and they have no idea the little bit of savings they have is slowly disappearing. But then it gets worse. One day, Haley goes to Mrs. Bennett and she makes up a story and she's like, oh no, you're being investigated by the government. And she tells them that this fake investigation is going to cause them to lose their pension. But then she tells Mrs. Bennett that she needs to pay her 40,000 Australian dollars so that she can pay the government off or something to save them from losing their pensions. And of course, Mrs. Bennett is scared, like she doesn't want to lose her pension. So she's like, sure, whatever you need to do to help us get out of this. Here's $40,000. And so this scam keeps going on for over a year. Haley takes money from the Bennett's bank account and she just buys herself whatever she wants. Real estate agents be shady like that sometimes. Until one day, Mrs. Bennett, she's probably chilling at home or something, and she suddenly realizes, damn, bro, I haven't seen a bank statement in a long-ass time. That's really sus, no cap. And so she's like, I better go check this out. So she asks her caregiver, because I guess she has a caregiver, to give her a ride to the local bank. So she gets to the bank and she's talking to the bank staff and she's like, yo, chat, where my bank statements at? And the bank is like, hey, we've been sending them to you. And that is when the bank staff shows her copies of her past bank statements. And that's when Mrs. Bennett sees all this crazy shit Haley's been buying. And she realizes she's been getting scammed. Over the last 15 months, Haley had made over 98 different transactions from the Bennett's accounts and spent nearly 100,000 Australian dollars of their money. And Mrs. Bennett sees this and she is pissed. So then, bam, she reports Haley to the police.
100.
And so police, they eventually bring her in and they question her, and Haley's like, I didn't steal anything from anyone. And she tells them that Mrs. Bennett had actually given her permission to take $100,000 from her bank account and spend it however she wants. And Mrs. Bennett hears about this and she's like, that lying-ass bop got that brain right. But then Haley also claims that, yes, she took the money, but that she had planned on paying Mrs. Bennett back. Sure, Haley. Anyway, Haley gets charged and she takes a plea deal, and surprisingly, she only gets 3 months in jail and she's ordered to repay the money she stole. Now, she hasn't gone to jail yet because the case is currently in appeal. And on top of all that, even though Haley left her original real estate agency, she's allegedly still out there, she's still working as a real estate agent, and she's still selling houses to people. Anyway, here's what she looks like in real life.
That's nuts. All right, man. Y'all like this? Y'all in this video, man. Yo, chat. Before the video, we out. Yo, what's good, chat? It's day 40 of uploading. We got Ray William Johnson, the entitled TikToker, is in prison now. Let's get 5 likes on the video, bye.
So this TikToker is in big trouble. And he goes by the name Icy. And Icy loves to flex on TikTok. Like here he is showing that his jewelry's real. Here he is showing off his car, showing off his house, showing off his outfit, I guess. I mean, you get it. He's that kind of influencer. But one day, Icy's out driving his pink Mercedes, and he's in traffic, and he gets into some kind of road rage incident with a couple of other people in other cars, particularly with this guy, who we'll just call Joe.
Joe, what did Joe do?
I don't know his real name. So Joe and his buddy, they're in his pickup truck stuck in this traffic jam, and Icy, he's out of his car, he's yelling at someone else, and Joe calls out to him like, dude, just get back in your car. And Icy turns to Joe like, hey, don't f with me, I have a pew-pew. And then Icy throws his whole ass drink at Joe. So Joe and his friend, they get out of the truck and they are pissed. And Icy, instead of getting in his car and driving away like a decent human being, instead he gets into the glove compartment and pulls out a pew-pew and he points it right at them. And Joe and his friend are like, okay bro, chill. And they turn around and go back to their car. And when they do, pow! Icy pistol whips Joe in the back of the head with his pew-pew. So then Joe gets back into his truck and he and his friend drive away. And Icy gets in his car and he chases them. And you can see footage of it here, and he ends up swerving around them and cutting them off. And yeah, and you can see he's clearly the aggressor. And Joe, he's still freaked out, so he calls 911.
The guy got out of his car and pistol with me with a gun.
And then Icy calls 911 and he tells a different story.
This truck came up and tried to cut me off, and then I had 4 guys jump out the car and say, I'm gonna beat the f*** out of you and all that stuff.
Minutes later, police arrive, and they talk to Joe, but Icy's already fled the scene, like he's gone. Later that night, police roll up to Icy's house looking for him, and he just happens to be pulling out of his driveway. So, bam, police surround him with their pew-pews pointed right at him, and Icy's like, don't you know who I am?
Put both of your hands out the window, kid. We're not with you.
I don't know who I am.
Nope. Take your seatbelt off and get out of the car. Do it now.
So I guess bro thinks he's too TikTok famous to get arrested. So anyway, they arrest him. Because, you know, it's against the law to pistol whip someone. And they search his car, and they find his pew-pew, and of course, Icy denies he did anything wrong. And so he's in the back of the police car, and he's on the phone with his girlfriend.
Babe, I'm getting arrested because of those people that cut me off.
And I know you're like, Ray, wait, he has a girlfriend? Yes, he has a girlfriend. But he's on the phone with her, and police are like, you're being arrested, you can't be on your phone. And they take it from him.
You can't take my phone, this is my possession, so now you're gonna be a thief? Now you're gonna be a thief.
You're under arrest, you're not allowed to have a phone, okay?
Wow.
And then Icy starts with the whole, but I'm internet famous thing again.
You don't see any problem with this. You don't see the problem that somebody with a bright pink car who is famous online gets with on the freeways all the time, and that's why I carry a gun. You don't even know what gun is the same gun that I hit with if I did. So you don't even know what gun was used in crime, but you want to sit here and act like I'm the criminal?
And so anyway, sometime later, he's still in the back of the police car on his way to jail. And Icy continues to argue that he's the victim here, and that all of this is the result of his online fame.
I mean, not everybody knows who you are.
It doesn't matter. I have 58
58
You can't assume that everybody knows who you are.
I don't assume that everybody knows who I am. I said a lot of people know who I am.
And by the way, I don't know where he got that 58 million followers number, because his TikTok account doesn't show anywhere near that. But whatever, who's counting? So anyway, they get into the station, and he keeps resisting arrest and trying to flex at the same time.
You're not about to take $30,000, $40,000 worth of jewelry without me knowing exactly where it's going.
I'm gonna write it on this form.
So
and then
go ahead and write it on the form.
No,
and
I have to
bring
know
it
what I
to
have to put on it. So give me the jewelry.
You don't know what this jewelry is valued.
Wyatt, come on now. I don't.
This to me the whole
She's called him Wyatt, his real name.
No,
you've been calling.
Get back in the car. Let him take They'll figure it out.
Okay. Oh, wait.
If they lose, they lose.
And so at this point, I guess he gets mad, because he just starts vomiting insults at them.
You guys are so annoying. It's like a power trip. You guys didn't do that. You guys had no friends in school.
That's true. None.
You guys had no anybody thinking that you were cool.
They probably did. They're cops.
And then they throw him in the back of the car, and he like tries to kick them.
Have a seat in the car. Hey!
There you go. Another charge right there.
And so anyway, after all that, Icy's finally arrested. Bam! Here's his mugshot. And he spends a couple of days in jail, and then he gets bailed out. Now at this point, Icy could lay low. He could keep his head down, try not to make any noise or cause any trouble. Oh, but that's not what he does. He immediately gets on TikTok and he starts spinning his own version of the story.
Yeah, should I do a story about how I got ripped out my Mercedes and my ass beat for trying to take my seatbelt off when they tell me to get out the car?
And while he's out on bail, waiting for his trial, he's posting all over TikTok, still trying to flex like life is good.
Yeah,
like showing off his jewelry and showing off another Mercedes I guess he owns. Showing off a bunch of Louis Vuitton stuff he bought. Buying his girlfriend an expensive purse. And generally just showing off stacks of cash. Now, where did a guy like Icy get all this disposable income to buy all this stuff? Honestly, I don't know. But my guess is he doesn't have all this money to spend. My guess is he's in debt, living off credit cards, stuff like that. No one with any real wealth shows off stacks of cash like that. It's a dead giveaway that he's low-key not managing his finances well and probably living in debt. Anyway, eventually his trial gets postponed. So, in the meantime, bro is right back to living his best life. Until Icy gets in trouble again. Allegedly, he gets into it with someone else, and I guess he ends up keying that person's car or something? I'm not really sure. And police find out, and his bond is revoked, and bam, he's arrested again. And before he goes back to jail for a long time, he does whippets while live streaming on TikTok, I guess to send himself off. And so he sits in jail. And a year later, his trial finally happens. And he's found guilty and he's sentenced to a total of 5 years in prison. And since then, his girlfriend, I guess she's now his wife because they got married, but she has completely taken over his TikTok. Like, it looks like she's running all his social media now.
Hey y'all, so I have to come on here and tell you guys that obviously I'm not on drugs and I'm just sad and breaking out. I'm off birth control and I am not doing well.
Also, to top it all off, Icy's mom, like his biological mother, she also makes TikToks. And sometimes she gets on and talks about what a turd he is.
Are you a parent and have you raised an asshole? Because I am, and apparently that is exactly what I did.
That's just amazing. Good luck to all of them.
That was an interesting video, buddy. Don't free him though. Keep him in the pen. We don't need him out. All right, man. We on the road to 50 subs. Y'all like subscribe. Yo, chat. Before the video, we out. Yo, what's good, chat? It's day 41. We out. He killed his own children. The Mick Philpott story.
So this guy has 2 wives. And I know you might think like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. But this is about to be a disaster for him. Now the guy's name is Mick, and Mick has an interesting lifestyle. He's living in Derby, England with his wife, this woman, Mairead. But then at some point, he also moves his mistress into his home. This woman, Lisa. And so they all live together there like one big happy family, so, you know, good for them. But as the years go by, Mick keeps getting Mairead and Lisa pregnant. So they keep having Mick's babies, and eventually they have a bunch of kids. Here's the thing about Mick, though. Mick doesn't work. Like, he doesn't have a job. He lives off the government. In fact, all of his income comes from welfare benefits. And with every new kid he has, he gets a little bit more money from the government. Not to mention, the house he lives in is also public housing, so that's paid for by the government too. So bro is just mooching. Now eventually, over time, Mick, Mairead, and Lisa, they end up having a total of 15 kids. 15 kids. Which means there are 18 people living in this house. Mick, Mairead, Lisa, and 15 children. And they're all living in this 3-bedroom home. But then, to make it even worse, Mairead and Lisa both get pregnant again. So what does Mick do? Well, he officially puts in a request for the government to move his family to a bigger house to accommodate for his comically large family. Now, this is such a wild request that it actually makes the local news, and people hear about it and they're really pissed off at Mick. They think he's taking advantage of public services, which, yeah, he is. And so Mick starts getting a lot of hate publicly and a lot of local media coverage. But he ends up kind of liking the attention. Like, it feels good to him. And he ends up going on this Jerry Springer type talk show called The Jeremy Kyle Show.
Wife number 1 comes to spend the night in the caravan, and then the next night, wife number 2 comes to spend the night. Oh yes, great stuff.
And then he ends up being in this documentary, and that gets pretty contentious.
You're a coward. Let's do as a coward. Let's move it.
So bro is just a mess. But whatever, he's getting a little bit of pseudo fame, and he seems to really be enjoying it. So he just keeps living his life, not working, taking care of his kids, and smashing with Mairead and Lisa in a trailer he keeps parked in their driveway. I guess there's always a bunch of kids in the house, so they have to go out to the trailer in order to smash. What kind of hillbilly shit is this? But anyway, to make it even more complicated, I guess Mick and Mairead are also swingers? ? Because at some point, Mick sets Mairead up with his buddy, this guy, Paul. Because I guess Mick likes to watch, so Paul and Mairead smash while he sits in the corner and watches. Yeah. So yeah, this family dynamic is all sorts of unorthodox, but this is where the story gets dark. At some point in time, Lisa becomes very frustrated with this whole situation because for a long time, Mick has been lying to her. He's been promising her that he's gonna divorce Mairead and be with her and only her permanently. Yeah, good luck with that. Now, obviously, despite the fact that Mick has been saying this for years, he still hasn't done it. And at this point, she is tired of waiting. She's tired of this lifestyle. She's tired of smashing in a trailer parked in the driveway. She has had enough. And one day, out of nowhere, boom, Lisa straight up leaves. And she takes her 5 kids that she has with Mick with her. Good for her. And so, as you can imagine, Mick is pissed. I mean, he doesn't want Lisa to leave him. He can't have that. But more than that, he definitely doesn't want to lose custody of the kids because that will affect those sweet benefits payments he's getting from the government. And so Mick comes up with this wild plan to be able to keep the kids and all the government benefits. First, he'll start a fire in the house while everyone's home. Then he'll swoop in and heroically rescue his and Mairead's kids. Then he'll frame Lisa for the arson. He'll say she started the fire and tried to burn the house down. That way she'll get in trouble, she'll go to prison, and he'll get to keep all 15 of the kids, and he'll keep getting those welfare checks. It's a perfect plan. What could possibly go wrong? Now, Mick knows he can't pull this off alone, so he asks Mairead if she wants to help him set their own house on fire and frame Lisa. And Mairead's like, aye. Then he asks Paul, and Paul agrees to help too. So a few months later, after Lisa has moved out, he sets his plan into motion. Now, on this particular day, there are only 6 kids in the house. Mairead's kids.
Wait, don't
the rest
tell me
either moved out with Lisa or they're staying
I already
elsewhere.
know this finna
And
go,
so
bro.
it's really early in the morning.
You finna
and
say
Mick,
kids
Mairead,
died, bro.
Mairead's kids are all inside, and the kids are all still asleep in their beds. And so Paul, he comes over to Mick's house, and he has a can of gasoline. And he goes inside and he pours it at the foot of the stairs. And kaboom, he lights the place on fire. And as soon as everything's ignited, Mick and Mairead, they run outside and they watch as the flames engulf the house. So everything is going as planned. So Mick, he calls 999, which is the UK's 911, and while the fire service is on their way, now it's time to swoop in and rescue the kids and look like a total hero. So Mick and Paul, they try to run in the house, and immediately, pow, they're hit with a thick wall of smoke and heat. The fire has already gotten too big, too fast, and they try again and again, but there's just no way they can safely get inside. And as much as the fire and smoke are keeping Mick out, it's also keeping the kids in. They're trapped. They're trapped, and there's no way for them to escape. Now remember, Paul poured the gasoline at the foot of the stairs, which is their only path to the front door. And so the flames are just too big for them to get around. So one by one, they all succumb to smoke inhalation. And one by one, they all end up unalived.
They'll die,
5
bro.
of
They'll
them
die.
die in the house that day, and one of them dies 2 days later in the hospital. Now, this was not the way the plan was supposed to go, and Mick and Mairead, they don't know what to do. So they keep the lie going. They tell everyone that they're devastated, and they hold a press conference, and they put on this whole show for the cameras.
I've actually been down to our home, and what we saw, we just cannot believe it.
And so, because their home is now burnt down, Mick and Mairead are put up in a hotel. And now remember, the fire initially started near the bottom of the stairs, inside the house. And police, during their investigation, they learn the fire started inside the house, and they get suspicious. Suspicious of this whole incident. And detectives end up bugging the hotel room that Mick and Mairead are staying in. And during their surveillance, they overhear Mick, Mairead, and Paul in the hotel room. They actually overhear them smashing. I mean, they literally hear them smashing. But more importantly, they hear them talking, trying to get their story straight. And so, boom, they arrest all 3 of them. And I don't have mugshots, but here's Mick in real life. And they end up going to trial, and they're all found guilty, and Mairead is sentenced to 17 years in prison. Paul is also sentenced to 17 years in prison, while Mick gets life.
Nice.
Good.
Nah, they're weirdos, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't no UK. I don't know y'all get down like that in the UK, buddy. I didn't know that. I didn't know y'all get down like that in the UK, bro. It's crazy work. Let's get 5 likes on the vid, and we on the road to 50 subs, bro. See y'all next video tomorrow. Yo, chat, before the video, we out. Yo, it's good, chat. I think it's day 43 or 42. We got Ray William Johnson. She has a very disturbing secret.
So this woman unalived her parents in her house and left the bodies there.
Oh, nah.
And guess how long she lived in that house with their bodies? Guess.
2 weeks.
Now, her name's Virginia.
3 months. 3 months.
And she's 32. She lives in Essex, England with her parents, and they all get along really well. But one day, Virginia starts taking advantage of them, and she starts stealing their money. Like, she'll take her dad's credit card and use it without his consent. Then she starts applying for loans in her parents' name. And here's the other thing about Virginia, though. She's addicted to gambling. I guess she does a lot of those online betting sites, to the point where she's currently in around 21,000 pounds in debt, or about 26,000 US dollars. And That's a lot of money. And despite the fact that she gets along with her parents really well, she knows that if they find out she's in all this debt from gambling and stealing money, they're gonna be devastated and probably pretty mad.
32.
And so, Virginia, she's about to be in a lot of trouble. Her gambling debt keeps growing and the clock is ticking, and it's just a matter of time before her parents catch on. Now, Virginia could go to them like an adult and confess that she has a problem and that she screwed up really big and that it'll never happen again, but that's not what she does. Instead, she comes up with this insane plan to make sure her parents never find out. And a few months later, she puts this plan into motion. First, she gets a bunch of prescription meds and she mixes them into her parents' drinks because she's trying to poison them. Then she serves them those drinks, and I guess later they go to bed. The next morning, Virginia goes into her dad's room, and she finds him there in his bed, and he's unfortunately unalived. Then she goes to check on her mom, who's sleeping in a different room, and mom is asleep because of the drugs, but she's still alive. And Virginia's like, oh, bollocks, it didn't work. And she immediately comes up with a plan B. And she grabs a hammer, and she goes to her mom, and bam, she hits her over the head. And bam, she hits her again and again. Now this hammer is hurting her mom, but it's not unaliving her as fast as Virginia would like. So she goes and grabs a kitchen knife, and as her mom...
BITCH is crazy, gang.
Mom comes to, Virginia stabs her in the chest, and then she stabs her again and again, 7 or 8 times. Then she wraps both of her parents' bodies in sleeping bags, and she puts them to rest. For her dad, she builds like a makeshift mausoleum, covering it with a sheet and family photos. It seems like it's like kind of a weird shrine. But her mom, she just stuffs her body in the back of a wardrobe. And then Virginia takes her mom's phone and she uses it to text her sisters, pretending to be her parents, like, your dad and I are at the seaside in Walton this week, so that the sisters think that they're on vacation instead of, you know, dead. And this seemed to work, and now that her parents are no longer alive, Virginia can do whatever she wants. So the next day, she opens a new credit card in her mom's name, and she goes on a little shopping spree. She buys herself some stuff that she previously couldn't afford. And the worst part is that Virginia keeps living in this house with her parents' decomposing bodies, just chilling in the next room. And a whole year passes.
A year's crazy work.
And Virginia is still there, living rent-free, spending her parents' money. And to be honest, I don't think they had a lot of money. I don't think they were rich. I think Virginia just wanted to live off of what little they had. In fact, at this point, they're still receiving their pensions every month. And Virginia is just cashing them in and living off of them. And the whole time she's doing this, she's texting family members from her parents' phones, pretending to be them and claiming that they're like out of town or that they're too sick to come visit. So no one in the family has seen the parents in a long time. Then, boom, COVID hits, and much of the world slows down and everywhere is on lockdown. And this actually makes Virginia's life a lot easier. Like, parents can't visit anyone now, they're stuck inside in quarantine. And eventually, she ends up telling everyone that her parents moved, like they moved out to Seaside to retire. She even goes as far as to drive out to the seaside and mail postcards from there to her parents' friends and family members, like, wish you were here, XOXO, mom and dad. And so Virginia keeps this up. She keeps up this facade for almost 4 years.
4 years, gang? Unos, dos, des, tres. Yeah.
And remember, she never removed her parents' corpses from her house. So for 4 whole ass years, she's been living there with them as they decompose. And as disgusting as that is, her plan seems to be working because so far she hasn't been caught. Until... So I guess mom and dad have a regular doctor who they've been seeing for years. And one day, this doctor notices, man, I haven't seen them in a really long time. So he calls the county council and he's like, this old man hasn't picked up his medication in forever. So the county council contacts the local police, and local police contact Virginia like, hey, have you seen your parents? And she tells them this whole detailed bullshit story about how her parents are traveling, and the police are like, well, okay then. But that's what she's been telling people for years. So now police are suspicious. And a few days later, bam, they show up to the house and they got a warrant to search the place. And they knock on the door, but no one's answering. So police are like, all right, we're just gonna bust the door down then. And so they just straight up bust the door in to the place with one of those little battering rams, and they go inside. Now, I can only imagine the house smells like dead bodies, so pretty quickly they see Virginia, and she's just standing there.
Stay where you are. Stay where you are.
Weirdo.
Stay where you are. Show your hands. You there? Jenny?
Yep.
Jenny?
And so, bam, they arrest her weird ass. Here's her mugshot. Now, here's what's really interesting. She worked hard to keep this a secret from everyone for 4 years. She's texting people from her parents' phones, she's mailing people fake postcards, all kinds of stuff. But as soon as the police put her in handcuffs, she drops the entire facade immediately, and she admits everything. And she just shows them where the bodies are.
My dad's body's in there.
Right, okay. Where about your mum?
A little bit more complicated.
Where we find your mum?
Okay, so upstairs there were about 5 wardrobes. It's behind the bed, but back
That
next to
nasty
the
accent.
sink.
She even casually goes into detail about how she did it.
Slipped a pile of those into his drink. There were about 2 or 3 drinks that I brought downstairs. When I went in the morning, early hours, I got up about half an hour early. About 6 o'clock in the morning, came in and he was gone.
And yeah, it's weird to see someone fess up like that, but then again, what else is she gonna do? Like,
Right.
she knows she's been caught.
I did know that this would kind of come eventually. Cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy.
And so, bam, they throw her in jail. And she's still confessing when she's in there, and she tells them where to find the hammer she used to unalive her mom.
It's in the middle underneath the stairs. It will still have blood on it. It's rusted, but it will still have blood traces on it.
Wow. So anyway, Virginia's charged with unaliving both of her parents,
Life.
and she pleads guilty, and she's sentenced to a minimum of 36 years in prison. And thank you to
Dang, I
Leonardo.
didn't know that's how y'all get down in the UK. That's how y'all get down in the UK. That's crazy, man. See y'all tomorrow, man. Next video. Yo, chat, before the video, we out. Yo, what's good, chat? We got Ray William Johnson. This teen girl became a terrorist. That's like
So
subscribe, man.
how did this rich teenage girl become the most wanted woman in America? Now, her
Whoa.
name's Patricia, and she's 19, and she goes to college in California, and one night in 1974, there's a
Damn.
knock at her door, and she answers it, and boom, 3 people wearing masks bust into her apartment, and they're armed. Then
Oh,
they
no.
grab her, and they tie her up, and they blindfold her, and they throw her in the trunk of their car, and they speed away. And they bring her to a safe house, and they throw her in a closet. And this is actually a real-life photo of that tiny little closet. So, who
No.
are these kidnappers? Well, they're actually members of a Marxist group called the SLA, and they think of themselves like Robin Hood types, stealing from the rich to give to the poor. And even though she's only 19 years old, Patricia is wealthy. Well, her family's wealthy. Her dad is actually Randy Hearst, the head of a newspaper empire. So not only is her family super wealthy, but they're sort of known for controlling the media. And because of this, the SLA sees kidnapping this rich man's daughter as the perfect symbol for what they stand for. And so
Okay.
this kidnapping story blows up, and it becomes huge news all over the country. A few days later, the SLA sends a letter to a local radio station for them to read on the air. And the letter is a message to Patricia's dad, like, "We kidnapped your daughter, bro." And once people are paying attention, the SLA sends an audio recording of Patricia.
Mom, Dad, I'm okay. I had a few scrapes and stuff, but
Oh, no.
they've washed them up and they're getting okay. And I've caught a cold, but they're giving me pills for it.
But also, the SLA is on tape making demands.
Before any form of negotiation for the release of the subject prisoner be initiated, that an action of good faith be shown on the part of the Hearst family. This gesture is to be in the form of food to the needy and the unemployed.
And so the SLA demands that Patricia's dad distribute $70 worth of food to every needy, hungry person in the state.
They on some Luigi stuff. The dude that killed the CEO
of California, which would be around $500 a person today. But donating that much food would cost Patricia's dad an estimated $400 million. So Patricia's dad is like, $400 million? Best I can do is $2 million. And they're only going to distribute the food to needy people around the Bay Area specifically. And so they do this. They distribute $2 million worth of food, and it kind of causes a riot, but they get it done. Despite that fact, the SLA doesn't release Patricia like they said they would. Meanwhile, Patricia's captors have started letting her out of the closet little by little. And she's been talking to them and listening to some of the things they're preaching, and they're making her read their manifestos and stuff. And over the course of a few weeks, she's like, damn, some of the SLA's ideas kind of make sense. I mean, they're pro-women, they're anti-racism, they want the rich to help the needy. Some of these ideas are a little ahead of their time, and this is very appealing to a 19-year-old college student like Patricia. And so, about a month later, the SLA finally gives her...
She about to join him. I'm calling it. She about to join him.
The option to go home. I mean, they can't hold her forever, and they don't really have much use for her anymore. But Patricia decides, nah, I want to join you. I want to be a part of the SLA. Plus, she starts getting mad at her dad. She thinks he didn't do enough to help feed those needy people he agreed to feed. So she makes a new audio announcement and sends it.
In the last week, it has become obvious to the SLA and to all hungry people and to me that my father has not even attempted to show a gesture of good faith.
And it's very clear from this recording that she has been fully radicalized.
I've chosen to stay and fight. I've been given the name Tanya. Patria muerte, venceremos.
Then, about 2 weeks later, the SLA goes to rob a bank. And Patricia, as one of their members, goes with them. And so they roll up into this bank, and they've all got pew-pews. And they start screaming, put the money in the bag, or whatever. But you can see Patricia on security footage here, and she doesn't look like she's being held prisoner. She looks like a full participant in this robbery. In fact, at one point, she even yells to the bank customers, up against the wall, motherfuckers! So yeah, she seems fully committed to this. So anyway, Patricia and the others, they rob the bank for over $10K, and they flee and they get away. And once that security footage of the robbery is released, it makes the news, and people see it, and they're freaking out like, yo, is that the Hearst daughter robbing a bank? And there's also this photo of her posing in front of an SLA flag, looking like a total badass. But anyway,
I was gonna say that. She looking good. That's aura right there. That's looking some aura.
Posing in front of an SLA flag, looking like a total badass. But anyway, all of this is pissing the FBI off, because they've been looking for the SLA hideout and they can't seem to find them. And so they put them all on the FBI's most wanted list, including Patricia, who you can see right here. So, now that their pictures are everywhere, the SLA knows it's only a matter of time before they're caught. So the whole group moves from the Bay Area all the way down to Los Angeles. And there is where shit starts to get real. One day, some SLA members go into a sporting goods store because they're going to do a little shoplifting. While they're inside, Patricia waits for them outside in the van. And so they're inside and they're shoplifting, and some employees catch them and they confront them. And so the SLA members run outside and the employees chase them. And Patricia, she sees what's going on and she grabs a pew-pew and she leans out the window and she sprays shots all over the building. And so the employees, they back off. And Patricia and the SLA, they all get away.
What?
But this whole shoplifting gone wrong thing makes such a scene that the FBI and police now know that the SLA is in Los Angeles. And they're able to track down the van they got away in. And tracking down this van leads them right to the SLA safe house. And the next day, boom, police have the safe house surrounded, like, come out with your hands up! But the SLA refuses to surrender, not without a fight. And so, pow, the whole scene turns into this massive shootout. The SLA shooting on one side, and the cops shooting on the other. And this thing goes on for like an hour. And the news crews are there, so this chaotic scene is happening live on TV. And eventually, police are like, all right then. And they throw some tear gas into one of the windows of the safe house, and you could see the place all fogging up. And then suddenly, kaboom, the SLA house catches on fire, and the whole place goes up in flames. And the SLA members inside, they all end up unalived. Some from gunshots, and some from the fire. But Patricia is nowhere to be found. And that's because she wasn't actually in the safe house. She's lying low with some other SLA members about 30 minutes away in a hotel. And so they're in that hotel and they hear the news of all the other members dying in the shootout. And they're like, oh shit. And so they go on the run. 16 months later, FBI tracks some SLA members to an apartment in San Francisco. And they swoop in and bam, they finally arrest them and Patricia. Here's her mugshot. Now, when Patricia is arrested, she appears to stand by her choice to join the SLA. I mean, you can see her here smiling, throwing up the revolutionary salute. And when she's booked, they ask her her occupation, and she tells them urban guerrilla. So, like, she's all in. But later, during her trial, she completely flips. She's like, actually, I was brainwashed. I was coerced into committing all those crimes. And, you know, maybe she was. I don't know. You decide. I'm just a storyteller. But anyway, I guess the jury doesn't buy it because Patricia is found guilty of bank robbery and some other stuff, and she's sentenced to 7 years in prison. And about 2 years later, I guess President Jimmy Carter feels differently than the jury because he commutes her sentence. So in total, she only spent like 22 months in prison before she's let out. And here she is holding up her order of clemency. Wow.
Bruh. That was interesting. She definitely didn't get brainwashed though. But okay. See y'all next video, bro.